Hi, my name is Dr. Alyssa Cohen with Pelvic Floor for Moms, and we're talking about stress incontinence today. So I want to talk about what it is, when you might notice it, and then what to do about it, which ultimately the answer of what to do about is always, it depends on you and your body and your pelvic floor and all the things. So that's why it's good to be assessed, but I can give you some general guidelines and places to start. So stress incontinence means you leaking urine, peeing your pants with stress. So that stress might be laughing, coughing, sneezing, or like running and high level activity, jumping rope, things like that. That's stress incontinence. Often we're saying it postpartum, but people can experience stress incontinence for their whole lives for any number of reasons and muscle imbalances and things like that. So if you haven't had a baby and you pee your pants sometimes, it's still good to get assessed, and there might be something to be done about it. So in terms of where to start for treating stress incontinence, this is where it's good to be evaluated by a pelvic floor physical therapist, because we often think that it's just pelvic floor weakness that causes that stress incontinence. Those muscles aren't strong enough to hold in that urine, and so we just do like Kegels and strengthen. But often it can be from tightness in those muscles or like poor coordination. So a tight pelvic floor muscle isn't going to be able to contract to do the job that we want it to do. So think of my bicep. If it's like halfway contracted and then we sneeze and we want those muscles to contract to hold in urine, there's not very far for it to go to squeeze and get that good hold. So we want that muscle to find resting length, resting tone to begin with. Then we sneeze, we contract all the way, and then we relax again to accommodate another stress, right? So this is why tightness can also contribute to incontinence. So how do we know if you're tight or weak? Again, this is where being assessed internally using one finger vaginally to feel those pelvic floor muscles and someone to tell you, hey, that's tight, and like we need to let go of it, or we need to do some like muscle work to get those muscles to loosen can be helpful. But things that I find, definitely like painful intercourse is going to correlate with tight pelvic floor muscles. But also, if you're like a type A person and like tend to have a lot of stress, if you are like a big worker-outer and like are generally really strong, runners I feel like tend to have tightness in pelvic floor. The other thing that I'll notice is people hold tension other places. So like jaw, like clenching, TMJ stuff, you hold tension in your shoulders, you hold your breath a lot, you squeeze your abs a lot. If you're holding tension in those places, you're likely holding tension in your pelvic floor. You just like can't notice because it's harder to tell. So look for some of those keys, and if that's you, then you might start with more mobility work, so stretching, range of motion work, things like that. So that being said, let's start talking about that. I always start with mobility before stability. So if you are a tight person, we're going to start with mobility work, and that might mean internal pelvic floor release, either by the therapist or being assigned to do that at home. I have a video on how to release tight pelvic floor muscles yourself with either a wand or a finger or a thumb. So you can start there. But then also foam rolling can be really helpful. So like adductors, glutes, quads, that would be some nice places to foam roll for external tension that is going to help release pelvic floor tension too in a kind of passive way. And then we can do some stretching. So my favorite pelvic floor stretch that I tend to give everyone, at least as a starting point, because I feel like it's really easy to feel what your pelvic floor is doing, is a deep squat stretch. So I'm going down. In this position, it's nice sometimes to put something under your sit bone, sit on something, but we're using that diaphragmatic breathing. I have a video on diaphragmatic breathing, so refer to that. But as we inhale, at the top of that inhale, we're lengthening and letting go into that pelvic floor. And actually this stretch is also easy to do like daily tasks in. So if I have to change a diaper or something like that, you can do it in this deep squat stretch, which is inherently going to put that pelvic floor in a lengthened position. So that's my favorite stretch. If you can't feel your pelvic floor there, you can refer to some of the other stretching, I guess a stretching playlist, right? That's where some of those stretching tools are going to be, and then also that mobility playlist is where some of the foam rolling and like trigger point releasing videos are going to live too. So that's where we're going to start if you think you might be a tight person. The other thing is, so if you're tight and you've worked on mobility, then you can start strengthening. If you think you're just a weak person and like overall you have some hip weakness and core weakness and things like that, then you're gonna focus your time on strengthening. So with strengthening, we're always talking about that candle breath first. So on that exhale, we engage pelvic floor, low abs. I mean, I would teach you in laying, so refer to that candle breath. Video is a good place to start, but then we need to be able to transfer that candle breath to standing, sitting, all sorts of different activities. But start there. Exhale, engage pelvic floor, low abs. We're using that for all daily tasks, right? So if we're picking up the baby, if we're picking up our toddler, if we're lifting some heavier stuff, we're using that exhale with exertion to help support our core and pelvic floor in those tasks. Once you have the handle of that, then we're going to apply that candle breath to any exercise that you're doing. Now we can, I'm going to refer to like the marching video and the straight leg raises and that progression of strengthening videos in the strengthening playlist. That's going to be what to work through. Exhale, engage with some marching the knees. Exhale, engage with a straight leg raise. But then that candle breath also applies to like squats and lunges and even like an overhead press. We exhale, engage core, pelvic floor, so that everything turns into a core strengthening video and we're engaging those stabilizing muscles to help support the incontinence, basically. So a lot of the strengthening that I have outlined is like on the mat and things like that, but we want to make sure that we're getting you up into standing, into functional tasks, so that we learn how to control those muscles with functional tasks as well. The last thing I'll say, one thing you can really quickly check in on for incontinence that can have like a really quick turnaround in terms of helping you not pee your pants anymore, is making sure that when you sneeze, laugh, cough, you are doing that candle breath. So a sneeze is just a really forceful, quick exhale. So with that forceful, quick exhale, we should have a forceful, quick contraction of the pelvic floor. When our body is injured with even like low back pain, but like labor and delivery and things like that, our pelvic floor like doesn't know what to do. So we have to teach it to like, oh, this is the reflexive motion that we want you to have. When I sneeze, you contract and lift. But sometimes we have to do that intentionally. So when you're ready to sneeze, tune in with your pelvic floor and notice when I do that quick forceful exhale, am I lifting my pelvic floor? Yes. So we want to just make sure that that pelvic floor is coming along with those quick forceful exhales. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, also when we sneeze, if my core is a canister with diaphragm on top, pelvic floor on the bottom, and that is working like a piston system, when I exhale, diaphragm comes up, pelvic floor comes up. So that's that motion that we're trying to get to happen to help facilitate that pelvic floor to lift. But that canister is not going to be working very well if your posture is not great. So if you're this person and like living in a lot of anterior pelvic tilt, rib flare, things like that, my canister is like pointed that way and that way, right? They're not pointing at each other. Also, if you sneeze and do one of these numbers, right, you're gonna crush that canister and you're gonna put a lot of pressure down onto pelvic floor. So making sure that you're staying nice and stacked until I sneeze, and I just engage my core there. So those are some quick things that you can apply and see if that helps with the incontinence as well.